I have made a lot of mistakes in my minimalism journey, and I have seen or heard of things that other people are struggling with. So I wanted to share some common mistakes and how to avoid them so you can save yourself a lot of time, heartache, and regret. Let's go. Hi guys, it's Laura from How to Get Your Shit Together, and I help you get organized, get motivated, and get decluttering. Very quickly, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel because I share a lot of advice on decluttering, organizing, and just generally living a simpler, happier life. Okay, let's dive in. The first mistake is falling into the what if trap. What if I need it sometime in the future? Or what if I let go of it and then all of a sudden realize how important it was to me? What if I suddenly find more time and can take back up knitting? Or what if I do eventually take that course? What if I change careers? What if I lose this extra weight? Basically, you are worrying that you will regret something. You're possibly worrying about something sometime in the future. One big way to counter this is to remind yourself that if you really wanted it that badly, you would have used it by now. And yes, it's sad to think that you may never be the person that you think you want to be, or you may never live the life that you think you want to live, but you still have a lot of wonderful things going on. You can't do and be everything, so it's okay to just let some things go. You have other priorities. And even if the thing you're imagining somehow does come to fruition sometime in the future, guess what? That thing will probably still be available somewhere. In fact, it will probably have been updated in the meantime, so you can go get yourself a better one. Another great tactic is to box the stuff up and give it a deadline date. So if, for example, you don't lose the weight by the end of the year, or if you don't take that college course you've been dreaming of this coming academic year, then just let the stuff go. Like I said, you just have other priorities. That's okay. Also, stop forming a physical bond with things. Stop flicking through books that you know you're never going to read. Stop trying on clothes you know you're never going to wear. If you are thinking of getting rid of something, only touch it to move it from wherever it is to the bin or to a donation box, and then just turn around and walk away. And then my final piece of advice here is to stop being so selfish. While you are hoarding clothes that you have never worn, there is someone out there who is in desperate need of a warm coat. While you are holding on to books that you have never read, you are depriving someone else of the joy of getting lost in that story. While you're collecting, small gadgets that you've never used, someone else out there could find their passion in them. Maybe they could even start their own business using them, or pull themselves out of the depths of depression just because that thing somehow brightens their day or makes their life easier. So stop being so selfish by hoarding things that you are never going to use, and let someone else find happiness in them. The second mistake, and I have made this one myself many times, is taking on too much. I know when you get that burst of motivation, all you want to do is move mountains of stuff out of your home. You pull everything off the bookcases, you empty out all the drawers, you put all of your clothes in a big pile. And the sheer effort of doing all that now means that you are completely out of steam, and maybe you've spent so long doing it that it's now actually bedtime, but you can't sleep because every visible surface, including your bed, is covered, and you curse the day that you ever foolishly decided to declutter. Take it slow. You can still get a whole kitchen decluttered drawer by drawer, whereas if you take every single thing out, you are quickly going to feel very overwhelmed and you're going to regret everything come dinner time. Work bit by bit, focusing on one small area or sticking to one small category. So complete that and then move on to the next thing. That way, when you inevitably run out of steam or when you just need your space back, you won't be left with a giant mess. The third mistake is trying to organize everything too soon. I know how tempting it is to get some pretty boxes or to buy some fancy thing with lots of drawers and compartments or a really beautiful bookcase, but don't. Not yet, at least. Finish completely decluttering first. And even after you've done that, I would still recommend waiting a while and just kind of living with the stuff. Sometimes you will realize that you can actually get rid of even more, and then other times you'll realize that you actually need extra of something. Wait until you are sure that what you have is what you're going to be sticking with, and then consider going out and buying a storage solution if you feel it's necessary. Leading on from that then, mistake number 4 is trying to get too complicated. If something is too awkward or just requires too many steps, you are not going to do it. So think about how you normally use the item and where you normally use it. It doesn't matter how great that new storage container is. If it will only fit in a cupboard that's the other side of the house, don't buy it. Don't go for the thing with all the bells and whistles if you're currently just chucking the stuff in a box. Start with the simplest solution and see how that works. And by all means, then after a while, add on some bells and whistles as needed or if you feel you want them. But if you start with all of them, that is just going to detract from the ease of use. It's easy to upgrade over time, but it is very awkward and disappointing to have to downgrade. Mistake number 5 is spending a lot of money. When I decluttered our medication, I literally just grabbed an empty box that used to have light bulbs in it, and then I used that as our kit to contain everything. I cut pieces of cardboard to act as dividers, and then that was it. Nothing fancy required, no trip to the store to have to splash out money on a shiny new container. That stuff is all well and good, but it's not necessary. Definitely in the beginning, I would recommend just sticking with something basic. Now, if after a while you feel you need to upgrade, then by all means. But like we said earlier, don't immediately rush out and buy something because you may find that it actually doesn't fit your needs after all. The next mistake, and one that I really struggled with, is not having an exit strategy. Not knowing how and when you are going to remove all the decluttered stuff from your home. Or maybe even knowing how and when you're going to do it, but not actually doing it. It can be easy to select things to get rid of, but it can be much harder to take that next step and actually find the time to bring it to the thrift store or to list it for sale or whatever. So look at your schedule before or even during your decluttering session and figure out exactly when you are going to get rid of that stuff. And then immediately put the stuff in your car so that it's ready to go and you are not tripping over it every 2 minutes. Mistake number 7 is thinking that you will make a fortune by selling everything, because chances are you won't. Unless you have something very valuable, you are only going to be picking up a few extra quid here and there, and that's after you spend hours taking pictures of things and writing up descriptions and answering questions. Or if you're having a yard sale, pricing everything up, putting the tags on, laying everything out. Ask yourself if it's really worth it. I held on to stuff for so long thinking that I would sell it. And then after a while, I realized that the reason I wasn't actually doing it, like actually listing the stuff for sale, was because it was going to require so much time and effort on my behalf. Time and effort that I just didn't want to give to it. And realistically, it was going to take a lot more money than I was actually going to get for the stuff to make it worth my while. I dropped it all off at the charity shop and I went home happy in the knowledge that the charity was benefiting from it and that someone else was going to be getting, a good top at a reasonable price. If you are determined to sell, then commit to it. Schedule in the time required to actually list it all. But be honest with yourself about how long it's going to take you and how much money you can realistically expect to make. And then double the time and half the profit. That's more like it. In the States, you can write donations off against your tax bill. So that's a really great way of basically making money while also having the convenience of dropping stuff off at the charity shop. So go for that option and don't forget to get a receipt. But don't just donate trash, people. You're better than that. Mistake number 8 is decluttering someone else's stuff without their consent. Please don't do that. I have never done it, even though I have desperately wanted to, but I know that it just breeds mistrust, and realistically the person is only going to cling on to the rest of their stuff that much more. And honestly, I wouldn't like it if someone did it to me. It's not up to us to determine what is important to another person. I have stuff that I'm sure seems silly to someone else, but they're precious to me. You know, they have meaning for me. And I would be absolutely devastated if someone else got rid of them just because they thought they were junk. It's so tempting, believe me, I know, but it's just not worth it. Lead by example and focus on your own stuff first. Share the process and the benefits and, you know, just generally open a discussion about decluttering. But remember, one man's trash. You need to be in the right frame of mind to declutter. It's a mistake that I've made, and it's meant that I have maybe not regretted, but certainly not felt great about some of the stuff that I have got rid of. It is tempting to dive into a decluttering project when you are feeling particularly ruthless, you know, when you are sick of the shit and it's just gotta go, but you run the risk of regretting something. And then similarly, if you are feeling particularly happy or nostalgic, then it's going to be much harder for you to let go of things. Try decluttering when you are in a pretty neutral mood, you know, when you're just focusing on wanting a better home and a better living experience. If you're concerned that you're feeling a little bit too ruthless, then just set the stuff aside and come back to it in a day or two when you're feeling a bit calmer. Or if you think that you could have been a little bit more ruthless, then again, just come back to the stuff in a day or two and go over it with a slightly more critical eye. But generally, if you are feeling pretty intense, positive or negative feelings, then you should leave the decluttering for now and then just come back to it when you're feeling a little bit more balanced. The last common mistake I see people making, and again, I have made it myself, is not finishing the job. It can be easy enough to, you know, pull everything out and just separate some things that can be gotten rid of, but then it can be really difficult afterwards when the motivation and the energy levels have dropped to actually put things back, you know, to try and implement systems and storage solutions. Decluttering can be very taxing, and the temptation is to just shove everything that's left back on the shelf or back in a drawer and not give it a second thought. But even if you have to leave it a day or two until you can muster up the energy to tackle it again, try and give some thought into where that stuff could best be stored or how it could best be utilized. There's no point decluttering if what's left looks just as cluttered. So those are some of the common pitfalls when it comes to decluttering. Let me know in the comments below what's the biggest one that you have struggled with, or if there's one you've experienced that wasn't on my list. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more tips on decluttering, as well as some advice on, you know, achieving your goals and living your best life. Until next time, cura mila magweb, agus begi me sif shigalua. Slán!